So now it's about just taking it up that little bit of a level. And this technique I'm going to show you here is what we call a letterpress technique. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take the embossing folder and we're going to apply ink to the inside of the folder. And then when you run that through, what it does is it pushes the ink into the deboss section. Really important to understand, the ink will only ever push into the deboss. Now, I've got two different looks here, a positive and a negative. And that's because on this one here on the right, what we've done is the actual image is debossed in. So the butterfly is raised here and it's debossed into the card here. So you get two different ways. This is whether we ink it on the positive or the negative. So I'm going to show you both so you can compare and contrast the two. Now, the best way to get a perfect result when using these folders is to use a brayer to apply your ink in. Now what you can do, what I've done many a time, is literally just take my ink pad and rub it all over the background. Now that's a really quick and easy way to do it. What you'll find is if you want, so on this one here, I've got that same perfect texture all the way over the background. And that's because we've applied the ink with a brayer. So then you get consistency as opposed to you just doing it manually by hand, and some pieces have a little bit more, some pieces have a little bit less, right? Now, easiest way to do this is to feel your folder, and I can see, right, so here, if I put ink on this bit, I'm going to get the ink on the raised section, which is the background. So if I put ink behind where it's coloured, I'm going to get this effect. Here, I can feel the raised bits are the butterfly and the flowers. So if I put ink on this side, I'm going to get this effect here. So you'll see that. We'll do this one first. We'll ink up this side first and I'll show you that. So if we take our ink pad, what we're going to do is we're going to load up the brayer first of all. So I'm just rolling over, and you can see as I'm moving the brayer around, we're getting that ink loaded on. So you can see I've got plenty of it on there. Yeah. So you load up the ink, and the great thing about these ink pads, they're really juicy. This one I'm using here is Lagoon. So I've got plenty of the Lagoon ink on. So then I'm going to roll it onto the folder. So as I roll it over, you can see because we're doing it with a brayer, the brayer is only putting the ink on the raised sections. Now I've got a few little bits where I'm missing there, not bits where I've got extra bits. So if I just get a little bit of a baby wipe, I'll clean off this brayer first of all. So it is, I think it's good, just do it as you're going so that you can keep your tools nice and clean. So I've got my ink off the brayer, even though I've realised I'm going to be using it in just a second to show you again. And then also, you can just about see it there. I've just got some ink in the background that I don't want here, so I'm just going to take it off this part here. But that's the only piece on all of that where I don't necessarily want the ink. So we've got that inked up, and I'm going to lie over my design. So I want that butterfly. I think I'm going to go here, so I'm going to lie this part over here. All right? So we lie that on, shut the folder up, and you can see we're going to get the ink exactly on that piece there, but it's actually, you can see there, we're going to get the deboss and the ink on. So the next part is to send it through your machine. Now it's a regular folder this, you can do this technique with regular folders and 3D folders, but because we're using a regular folder, all we need in theory are the two cutting plates. However, because we've got all that pressure in the Gemini, I'm going to use it. I'm going to pop the magnetic in just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. Again, if it's too much, I think it's going to be all right just because it's quite a thin cardstock I'm working with. In the folders, we haven't made too thick. Nice deep emboss, but not too thick folders. So if I want that extra pressure, that's a great way to do it. So now if I lift this off here, you can see there we get that ink and it's pushed into the inside of the folder, right? So that's one way to achieve it. So that's one option. I'll leave that up here. I'm going to clean my folder off. Really important, I would say. Always try and clean up as you're going, because what you don't want to do is get ink on these folders that you then don't want to stay. So I'm going to get plenty of, I'm going to get the clean one, just give it a nice good clean. So we've got all of the ink off the folder. Then I'm going to do the same as what we've just done, but on the other side to show you the opposite. So we're going to, same technique, we're going to load up that brayer. All right, so plenty of ink on the brayer. And I'm going to go again over that butterfly, but this time when we roll it on, we're getting the ink in the background. So can you see it's going all over in the background? Now remember what I said, you'd have the option, the other option you'd have, you see, is just to take your ink, if you didn't have a brayer, and just rub all over. But can you see it's a little bit inconsistent in how it's applied the ink there? That's where the brayer comes into its own. It gives you that slightly different kind of all over even effect. So I'll do the same again. I'll just pop that braid to one side on a baby wipe, and we'll come back to it in a second. But I'm going to take my cardstock, lay the cardstock over in the same place again, pop that down. So again, you can see now we've got all of this ink all over the background. I'm going to pop that through. Same again, base. We're going to put the magnetic on for the bit of extra pressure and the top plate. And again, when I take this out this time, we've got that ink in the background, and then we've got a little bit left on here. So I'll do the same again. I'll pop that to one side and get this all nicely cleaned again. So we're nice and clean. We're ready to put all that together. So if I bring the card in, what you'll see I've done is I've just got one of the cards. And if you were making these again at home, it's basically a half fold card, then a score line in the centre to give that fold back piece. And all I've done is I've cut a couple of bits of black cardstock as well, so that we can mount these onto the black cardstock. Now, just as I did before, you can either use your tape pen if you're fairly confident at where you're going to position these down. So I've got that down right first time there. Or you can use your all-purpose glue if you want time to manoeuvre it into place. And I'm going to pop that on. Now what I've done is I've cut these exactly the right size so that they're going to mount onto the front of the card there. And then again, because on this card we're really showing off the embossed detail, we're not necessarily, wanting to cover that over in any way. All I've done is taken one of the toppers that we've popped out from the card pad. I've just gone round the outside with a little bit of black just to take the starkness off, and I'm going to put tape on one half only, so that the tape that lies exactly over the centre, so that when we open up the card, you can see it stands proud on its own, and you can see that positive and negative contrast. But once you've learnt that letterpress technique, you can do it with all of the embossing folders you have, and there's so many different techniques you can take it onto. Have a look about. Hopefully this will just be the beginning for you.